Welcome to the 5S training. Today we're going to go through the 5S training, and then you're going to work with your coach to help practice 5S in your work area. Without further delay, let's jump in. I like to start this training off by asking a few questions and having you reflect upon your answers. What do you find frustrating about your workplace? How much of your time is spent looking for tools or items that you need throughout your day? And how often do you feel like you just don't have enough time to complete all your tasks within that day? Take a moment and reflect upon your answers. There are many benefits to 5S, but here's some key ones I want to share with you. 5S helps increase morale, safety, and team communication. It also makes people's jobs easier through organization and effectiveness. 5S helps make expectations visible, which makes it easier for people to understand them so they can achieve them. And the result of 5S is that problems become more visible. So 5S is a methodical approach to removing waste by allowing teams to organize and maintain their workspace in the safest and most effective manner. This includes both electronic and physical workspace. You might be asking at this point, where does the 5 and S come from? Well, it was coined from a Japanese approach at workplace organization. You see, all their steps started with the letter S. So when it was translated over to English, they made sure that the English word started with S as well. We have sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. Now, some organizations that have a high attention to safety like ours decided to add safety, but not as an additional step. It's a conversation that is integrated into every step. So the 5S method is meant to be done in a phased approach. Each step builds upon the next. If you were successful in the first step of sorting, then it prepares for success in the set in order, and so on. 5S is a continuous process. It's not a once and done methodology, but just like our work, it changes with it over time. It helps to understand that waste exists everywhere, no matter where you work. We want to remove waste from our process, and the only way to remove it is to find it. But how can you find the waste when it's buried under clutter and chaos? Here is an example from the Department of Transportation Fleet Service event. In this work area, this is before they started doing their 5S. Can you tell how much work is waiting to be done? Can you tell if something's missing? How would it feel to work in this space? Now, this is the same space after sorting. How much waste do you think they removed? Do you notice the changes? How would it feel to work in this space compared to the other one? Now, with this training, we provided you a handout, the assessing levels of 5S. This document is intended to be a guide, not a scorecard. It's not a goal like, let's get 5 out of 5 as fast as we can. This is to help you along your journey, to help guide you to your next step. When your team pulls out the levels, they should be looking, where are we currently at? Where do we want to go next? Then making a plan to achieve that target condition. This tool can be used also to reflect upon the progress your team has made, to celebrate those victories. I want you to keep in mind that this tool's levels are not equally weighted. What I mean by that is to go from a level 1 to 2, it takes some effort, a little resources, but it's pretty easy for most teams. On the other hand, to go from like a 4 to a 5, that takes a lot more resources and the return on investment isn't as great. Safety, doing everything we can to ensure everybody goes home in the same condition that they arrived at work. See, safety is everybody's responsibility. It should be part of our regular observations in our work area, and it's up to us to keep each other safe. So at every step in this process, you should be having a discussion about safety with your team. The first step is sort, separating the unnecessary from the necessary. Sounds simple enough, but when you stop to think about it, something might be unnecessary for you, but might be very necessary for somebody else. So this is an opportunity for the team to have a discussion. Now look at the picture on the right here. If I asked you, hey, please go through and sort that area, how would that feel? Most people tell me it would be overwhelming. So remember that, start with small areas so you don't get overwhelmed. I recommend that you take all the items out of the area so you can sort them. A necessary pile, an unnecessary pile, and a third pile of unknown. Here at Vehicle Maintenance, we designate an area we call the orange tag area to house the unknown items until we can make a determination whether it's necessary or unnecessary. The orange tag area is placed for things that we're not really sure about yet, and we want to still figure it out, or new items that have wandered into the area after we have done our 5S. Your team will need to decide the location of the orange tag area, but it is important that it is visible to everybody. The way the area works is that if anybody puts an item in the area, they should have a tag on it, who put it there and the date. The team will need to set the criteria for how long something is allowed to stay in that area. For example, 2 weeks. The team will make it clear what will happen to the items that stay past a lot of time. For example, they'll be sent to surplus. Now, one of the benefits of the orange tag area is sometimes it's difficult for people to let go of things. They don't think they really need it anymore, but they're not really sure. It allows them to place it into the orange tag area and let go of it slowly. One important rule for items that go into the orange tag area is if they're going to be pulled back out, you have to give a specific reason for the item it's used for this process. You can't just say, I think I'm going to need to use it. The owners of the orange tag area, the owners of the area are responsible for the orange tag area. They need to be doing audits. So after they 5S the area, the orange tag area is used to put things that just appear in your area. The owner should be going in and checking to see if things are staying past their allotted time. Now, during the sorting stage, it's really important to include all team members that use the space, because what it does is it allows the team, everybody in the team, to have ownership over that workspace and to agree upon how you're going to use it and organize it together. Teams should have conversations about what criteria they're going to use to determine the sorting. So here's an example. This is an example of a team sorting criteria. They use frequency, how often an item was used. They have high, average, low. In this criteria, the frequency of how often it's used determines where it's going to be stored. For example, a low usage item will be stored at a distance because it's not a big impact to have to walk over there every once in a while to get it, versus a high frequency item, they want to store that close to where the work is being done. They might also think about on the frequency determining how often, how much they keep of something. For example, you might have a high frequency item and you say, we're going to put one of these items at each workstation, versus a low usage item, we're only going to keep one. But remember to also have that conversation about safety during this stage. The next step, the second step, is set an order, a place for everything and everything in its place. It should be easy for anybody to know where something goes back. It also should be really obvious when something is missing. When you set an order, you should create visual indicators to indicate where something belongs. Some examples of visual indicators are like bike lanes. You have that white line that shows you the barrier, the boundary. You have a picture of a bike in it. Normally it has the word bike underneath it. And there's some that even have signs that say bike only. These are all visual indicators, and you can see how they can work together. You can work together with pictures, colors, and words. Now, on the slide here on the right, we have what's called a shadow board. Shadow boards are where you build a space for your tools, and then you outline those tools. So when the tool is placed over top of it, you can't see the shadow. In this particular shadow board, you'll notice that there's a yellow line that runs through the shadow. If the yellow line is interrupted, it means the tool is there. If it is continuous, it means the tool is missing. You'll also notice that below the drawers, they have labels on them. That's another type of visual indicator. Let's look at some examples. So this is an example from the Virginia Mason Center, where they have set in order their medical cart. As you can see, everything has a place and there's a label. Even the syringes have a label that matches the label on the cart. And there's even a box in the middle for used drugs. This could be very helpful in a medical emergency where people are sharing the cart and using it, and they ask, did we give them that drug or not? Instead of having to ask every individual person, they can look down and say, oh yes, we did. It's in the used drugs section. Here's another example. This is the recorder's office where they did a 5S event for their front counter workspaces. They all share that space. So it doesn't matter where you work, what station you're at, everything is set in the same order. So you're able to help the customers right away. They even took a picture of the drawer, what it should look like. And we're going to talk about that in step 4 about standardizing. So the third step, shine, cleaning as a form of inspection. This step is really about sustaining the first and second step, sorting and set in order, and maintaining the way the team designed the workspace. Your team will need to create a schedule, cleaning, and how frequently it is done. Some teams do this daily, others do it weekly. It's really up to your team to decide. The team will need to document what that includes and who is responsible for it. And they'll need to find a way of tracking it. Like here we have an example. This is a kitchen event they did, and they have a sign-up sheet for people to volunteer to sign up. So when people are cleaning, they're also inspecting. They're looking for things that are missing, broken, or something new is crept into the workspace, and they need to move it over to the orange tag area. They'll also be looking for safety issues, spilled grease, something sticking out, something that's broken and could be a trap hazard. We recommend you keep a checklist that people can like initial, somehow some easy way for you to monitor the success of that schedule. And you'll find that if you had included your members in the first and second step, they're more likely to volunteer to help maintain the space. So again, that's why it's so important to involve everybody. The fourth step, standardize. Creating a standard agreement allowing for accountability. The standard agreement should be a written document in a sequence of events, or it could be something simple like a picture with descriptions on it. It's really up to your team to figure out what would work best. The standard needs to be kept in the workplace, so it's clear and easy to understand what the standards are, and everybody can be held accountable to. This is a good opportunity to include safety information, like in here in the example. By having the standards clearly displayed, it allows your team to easily understand what are the expectations and what does success look like. The fifth step, sustain, maintaining standards through training, empowerment, commitment, and discipline. Now, this is the hardest step for teams because they go through all the work of the 5S, and then over time it begins to slip back, and then they have to do the work again. In order to sustain the 5S, leaders should be doing periodic audits, looking for areas that are starting to slip. For example, they might go in and see that we've added a new tool to the area, but we haven't created a visual indicator. Or they might be going in there and identifying gaps in people's knowledge. For example, they might have hired some new people and our visual standards aren't clear enough for them. We need to enhance those. If it starts to slip, then fix it and find out why it happened to prevent it from happening again. And again, the owners of the orange tag areas should be doing periodic audits to make sure things don't stay past their date there as well. Now, as you're executing your event, we recommend the Kaizen Newspaper to help you track your progress. Here is an example of a Kaizen Newspaper. As you can see, there's an area for what actions you're doing, so what's happening, where it's happening, by whom, and the expected completed date. There's also these circle fractions. They're used as visual indicators that tell us the status of those actions. And there's also an area for notes. Make sure that your Kaizen newspaper is located in a space that all team members can see and leaders to ensure that they know where they're at. And it can be either a paper version or it can be on a shared team site. As with any tool in the continuous improvement toolbox, you should always be thinking about improving the process. We recommend the plan, do, act cycle. But you can really use any improvement cycle. This is just the simplest one. It's really about ensuring that the things we're doing now aren't just because we've always done them that way. It's about ensuring that the things that we're doing now is because it's the best possible way. The ultimate goal is to always have exactly what is needed when someone needs it. Thank you for spending time reviewing the contents of this training. You are now ready to go work with your coach to pick an area and work on. We suggest you pick a small area to do so that you can go slowly through each step to really reinforce your thinking and learning.